As I said in the last lesson, shifting responsibility for user research, testing, and prototyping onto colleagues won't land smoothly for everyone. After all, it is a big ask, and to make progress, you're going to need to get ahead of those objections, both the ones that people actually voice and the ones that they keep to themselves. Now, when I coach teams through this transition, I encourage them to start conversations by acknowledging concerns up front. A simple line like, I know some of you might have concerns about this approach, so let me share a few thoughts before we dive in, takes the sting out of that kind of resistance. Now, it's tempting to avoid focusing on objections for fear that you will plant those objections in people's minds. However, in my experience, you're better off getting ahead of these things because once somebody expresses an objection, they tend not to back down. However, if you raise the issue first, then they can choose not to pursue it further. Here are some of the common objections you're likely to face with a few hints on how to address them. Now, I have to say this isn't an exhaustive list and you will need to customize your responses to suit your audience and situation. However, they should give you some pointers to go in the right direction. One of the most common objections you'll encounter is I don't have time for added UX activities. But in truth, lightweight UX techniques save time by catching issues early and reducing endless revisions later. A 5-minute sketch or a quick test can prevent weeks of rework. Another common objection is this is your job, not mine. But UX is everybody's responsibility. Just like safety isn't just the job of health and safety team, UX isn't just something that can sit in a single silo. Your team will provide guidance and oversight, but the workload must be shared if projects are to succeed. Third, I've got UX isn't in my job description. Point out that creating a good user experience is baked into everybody's role. Everybody, at least, who shapes products and services. It's not an add-on. Instead, it's a fundamental part of doing any job well. Then there's I'm not a UX expert, won't quality suffer? Well, right now, many products are getting little or no UX attention because your team is overstretched. Equipping colleagues to do the basics actually raise the overall standards for UX, and you're always still there to provide coaching and set guardrails. Next up, I've got UX will slow projects down. Well, in fact, the opposite is true. Without UX input, teams burn time with debate and endless rework. Suggest piloting an approach on one project if they don't seem very keen, and if that doesn't help them, then they don't need to continue. Another unsaid one is that we've always done things this way, and so people can be reluctant to change. And although they might not want to change because they feel that the status quo is fine, users' expectations have shifted dramatically. There's a great quote from somebody at IBM who said the user's last best experience becomes their minimum expectation. And that's the problem. Expectations are constantly going up. The old way just can't keep up with those rising standards. Another thing that people will say to you is that they'll need extra resources to do all of this extra work. But you're going to provide them with templates, tools, and trainings. The only added resources that they need to provide is a little bit of extra attention, which is going to quickly pay off for them with smoother projects. And finally, I've got, I don't want to be accountable for UX outcomes. Now, people don't tend to say this, but they do think it. And so we need to reassure colleagues that the UX team will retain overall responsibility. Their role is just to contribute, not to carry the full weight. You remain the safety net. We need to remember that objections are normal. We need to treat them as signals of what colleagues need in order to feel safe to try something new. We need to anticipate them, respond clearly, and keep the tone supportive rather than defensive. So that said, in the next lesson, we're going to explore the resources, the support services, and the educational materials that's going to make this shift stick.